Dramatic entrance. Hello everybody and welcome back to Comedian MTG. My name is Ian. On today's episode, we're going to be breaking down the top 16 of the Clash for Cash event that I was at in Oklahoma City. Clash for Cash is run by Misty Mountain Gaming, pretty cool company, and they also have, they're in these events called GalaxyCon, which is like a, for those who know, like Fan Expo, Comic-Con type of thing. And it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool time. They ran tournaments all weekend. I participated in what I'm calling 3.5 of them in the sense that I fully participated in 3 and one of them I dropped out of pretty early because I realized the prizing was a winner takes all type of thing and I could jump into this tournament, which I ended up doing pretty well in. So it was a very good EV play for myself personally. I normally write down like a big tournament report for tournaments like this. Throughout the weekend, I top 10'd a 1K, I top 4'd this tournament, spoiler alert, and I top 4'd a Time Twister tournament the next day. And so, you know, obviously very good weekend, felt very great about it, but part of that was that I played tournament back-to-back with tournament, back-to-back with tournament, and I just did not have the mental energy to take down notes and game summaries after going, you know, and playing like 3 days of Magic straight. So instead, I figured I'll do a top 16 breakdown today and we'll go from there. If you like videos like this, if you like the tournament reports, if you like our deck techs, anything like that, make sure to go over to this YouTube video and hit like and subscribe. It is free and helps out the channel a whole ton. We're doing some pretty cool reworks over at patreon.com/comedianmtg. As you can hear, I'm a little under the weather currently, so we're gonna be powering through this video a little bit, but as I mentioned, the Patreon, super helpful for folks to jump in over there. I'm going to be putting up a stretch goal soon so that we can have 2 videos a week, which would be really cool. Basically, the stretch goal would be so that either A, I can afford another editor, or basically B, I can afford to, you know, pay myself for the time that I would be editing a video and that I can afford to like not take clients during that time so that I can produce more content for you guys here on the channel. So if any of that is of interest to you, check out patreon.com/comedianmtg. We can find out coaching tiers, you know, our other tiers as well with many perks and many updated perks as well as recently $10 patrons and up get our videos as soon as they get them from editor. Before they even have thumbnails or titles or anything, they can just get the video cut nice and clean, all that stuff. So without any further ado, let's jump on into it. We have our top 16 from the Dual Land tournament there in Oklahoma City. It was a 70-person event, and we're going to talk about the top 16 deck. First of all, we have a Kenrith list here. We have Kenrith, the Returned Extortionist by, how I'm assuming you say, Glitch 30. This is a pretty standard Kenrith list here, running some pretty cool cards though, and I think there's some definitely interesting ones to talk about here. One of the coolest I'm definitely seeing is that they included Delny in this list, and also this is a pretty land light Kenrith list. I was at 28 lands in Kenrith. I actually moved it up to 29 lands for this tournament. Spoiler alert, I was playing Kenrith. But yeah, this is a 26 land Kenrith list, definitely pretty aggressive for a mid-range deck, and a lot of value engines here. This version opting to play Trouble in Paris, Smothering Tithe, One Ring, Survival, Rhystic, Mystic. So a lot of those generic value engines here with this one. It's on Final Fortune 2, which I think is definitely leaning more towards a proactive Kenrith list, but we also have things like Dovin's Veto, showing a little bit more of a controlling side to the archetype. Playing the Thoracle Lines as per usual, playing Mnemonic Betrayal as a potential win con. I did actually add Mnemonic Betrayal as one of my wins post-tournament. During this tournament, you will not see me on Mnemonic Betrayal, but I actually did end up cutting Fastest Oracle for Mnemonic Betrayal moving forward. And I'm feeling pretty good about that decision. This version's on Neoform and Eldritch Evolution, definitely a little bit more into that creature style strategy. Now we have Delny here to basically be able to be a dockside doubler and have a few more synergies throughout the deck, work with Orcish Bowmasters and other cards like that, like Esper Sentinel, but not a ton of stuff for Delny, to be honest. I guess it also works with Kinnan too, which is, anytime Kinnan is tapping for 2 extra mana, it turns out to be a pretty cool situation. So cool list, cool Kenrith list. I still can't believe they're on so few lands, but it's pretty cool. And congrats to our pilot for the top 16. We have Sisse here we got Spider123's Good Stuff list by MTGO, Mute. This is a pretty classic Sisse list, a little light on the Planeswalkers compared to other lists that I'm used to, but running some pretty cool options. And if this is the player I thinking of, I actually played against them like 4 times over the course of this weekend as they were playing in all of these tournaments. Cool inclusions here is Sig, River, Cutthroat. I think it's actually a really solid inclusion for a lot of Sisay lists. This version is also playing Displacer Kitten and Felidar Guardian. So a lot more like Sisay agnostic combos in this version of the deck. The Felidar Guardian are obviously able to pair off with Saheeli Rai and be a 2-card combo there. And the Displacer Kitten, obviously a 2-card combo with our good friend Teferi. Displacer Kitten also combos with Lurrus and usually Lotus Petal and another 0 mana rock sometimes. Well, or I guess Lotus Petal and Lurrus and Displacer Kitten just combo on their own. But there's no LEDs, so that also is just like a very narrow combo in this deck in particular. There's also Birthing Pod in this version of the deck. So this deck definitely playing a few Sisay pieces that are a little bit atypical as far as the Sisay plan is concerned. The rest of it is a lot of the classic, you know, you want Sisay plus Dockside, you want Sisay plus our Planeswalker lines here. You've got your Bloom Tenders and Faber Welders and all of that stuff to be able to go up your tutor chain. But with this one having a few more pivots, as I mentioned, that can kind of catch your opponents off guard. We have 2-row-2 with Galaxy Con. This is a pretty classic Kinnan list. This seems very similar to Wounded Satellite's version of this Kinnan list, and I'm pretty sure it's quite similar. But yeah, this is the classic Kinnan stuff we know and love. Kinnan's been a bit of a downtrend lately, so good to see it making a top 16 in the face of a decent amount of adversity from the rest of the format for sure. And looks like it did pretty well in this tournament here today, so congrats to our pilot. We have Kinnan Does It Slightly Worse by PBT Donut. This is another Kinnan list, and you know, running some interesting tech here with Forensic Gadgeteer. That's one of the only pieces we didn't see in the other version of this deck. This is basically, you know, if your Kinnan gets blown out, you still have a way to go infinite with Basalt Monolith. So that's kind of a fun little inclusion. Apart from that, looking pretty identical to the one we just looked at. I'm actually now a little curious to see just how far away these lists are. Yeah, so we're about 3 cards different in these versions. The earlier list was on Another Dork, Counterspell Waterlog Grove, whereas this one's on the Surveil Land, Forensic Gadgeteer, and Agatha Soul Cauldron. So all in all, pretty similar lists here. Try to do the same old Kinnan thing. We have Taco Bell Piglet, which is a really awesome username, I'm not gonna lie, on Sisay's Legendary Soup for the Soul. Here we have a more traditional Sisay list that we would normally expect to see. This one also a Displacer Kitten, so I guess I can't necessarily call it strictly more traditional. No, what am I kidding? This is also on the Felidar Guardian lines. I completely misread that. And if anything, this is less traditional. I'm immediately eating my words. This is a version of Sisay that is on the Underworld Breach with Flicker and Dihada lines. I don't even think they're on they're not on Brain Freeze or Lion's Eye Diamond. They're just on Underworld Breach plus Flicker plus Dihada, which for those who don't know, basically creates a very heavily sculpted Breach line. You are able to net a single mana every time you Flicker Dihada with the Underworld Breach, and basically creates a scenario which you are milling 4, exiling 3 of those 4, and netting a treasure every time you go, or netting 2 treasures, apologies, because you only actually have to cast Flicker with the 4 mana you make off Dihada. So definitely a very tight Breach line for that Dihada version of this deck, and I'm seeing a Thoracle here too. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. So that's kind of the payoff, but there's also no cards to pay off with Thoracle. So there's Tainted Pact, okay, but there's no Demonic Consultation. So there's a Tainted Pact in this Sisay list. There's Felidar Guardian lines. There's a Dihada Flicker Breach line. Yeah, this is a quirky little Sisay list for sure. I don't know what in the Oklahoma City metagame has prepared this specific variant of Double Cat Sisay, but apparently Double Cat is very popular in this version. Once again, going even deeper in the paint with some Flicker Breach there in Sisay. So quite a crazy list, not to mention the fact that there are other Chromatic Orrery, Dihada, Cultist of the Absolute lines too. So this list is playing a lot of Sisay soup and doing a lot of crazy stuff. So wild deck here, and just super cool to see this kind of innovation in Sisay. This is definitely not a Sisay list I am very used to seeing here, and for sure has a lot of fun surprises. Hey, you out there, check out ToaMagic.com. Tales of Adventure is a wonderful Magic store. They vend almost every major Magic event that I am very used to seeing. And on their website, you can actually even have options for them to have cards at pickup at events. So you can order things online and have them ready at location. If you use code Comedian, you can get a percentage off of your order. Y'all have been really great about supporting Toa on the channel so far, and I would love for y'all to keep doing so. They've got great prices and a crazy amount of availability. Once again, ready for you at location at major events. So check it out. We have Metal Divinity here with Greek. This is a pretty aggressive Keurig list. It's been a while since I've seen Keurig actually make that top cut. So kind of cool to see Keurig up here in these top tables. It is a deck that has mathematically just struggled for a little bit. This is just, it has not been putting up the numbers that it once did. Had a pretty good run last summer at the Festival of Dice tournament, but then apart from that, it's been struggling in the metagame. So very cool to see Keurig doing the Keurig stuff. We've got the Bowls of Citadel, Leshrac Sigil kind of stuff going on here. Reservoir as the payoff for those lines. You've got your Entomb, I don't know, is this the Buried Alive version of the deck? Yeah, okay, so we do a Buried Alive lines where you Buried Alive the Scourge Familiar and is there no Asmodeus? I thought there's usually an Asmodeus the Archfiend version. Maybe I don't know what the exact files are for those. That's kind of cool. Oh yeah, it's the Chainer stuff. Okay, yeah, you like infinitely reanimate Gary over and over again is like one of the lines I know a lot of them go for. There's a lot of like really quirky, crazy stuff, and obviously Necrotic Ooze is one of the biggest payoffs for the deck is just to you basically have the ability to like discard a bunch, reanimate stuff over and over again, on top of the fact that once again you could kind of do this like crazy Storm Citadel stuff on top of that. So Keurig's one hell of a crazy deck, a deck that I have never personally played, but you know, I love the idea of giving it a try sometime, but it is maybe even too turbo for me. And also just like so many moving pieces, it's kind of crazy. But congrats to our pilot for taking a deck that's been struggling in the metagame and making top cut with it. We have Do the Twist with Sisay, a third Sisay list here, this top 16. Maybe a more normal looking Sisay, we say questioningly. Okay, we've got another Displacer Kitten, but I have checked, there's no Felidar Guardian in this version of Sisay, so just Displacer plus Teferi. It's so strange to see this being such a common choice in this deck. We have Endurance here, which is definitely not a common piece for Sisay loops. Obviously they're just to either shuffle the graveyards back in, as I mentioned, like a lot of people like myself use Sky Turtle for that purpose, but this player residing on both, and also, you know, being anti-Thoracle Tech's pretty cool. We have Legolas's Quick Reflexes to give protection to a bunch of your creatures, which is obviously pretty powerful. And one that I moved off personally, but I definitely think it's pretty solid to say. And then Flowering of the White Tree is the other sort of atypical pump piece here. It's been played in Sisay lists, but sometimes struggles a bit to get that double white cost in for a lot of Sisay decks. But yeah, this is definitely a much more normal looking Sisay deck. Doing the classic Tutor Trade stuff, going up the classic Abadatu to Kobolas Oath of Fairy lines. This one actually quite similar to the list I brought to the last Clash for Cash event that I ended up winning with. Big difference here being the fact that they're on Displacer Kitten and Endurance, and I was not during that event. So congrats to our pilot. Extra Bell Silver is another one, but congrats to our pilot on the top 16. Now this deck actually did lose to in the Swiss. This is Sithis Storm, and our pilot was quite a confident pilot. It was very impressive watching them play. This is by Zombie Dreams. It's a really cool list. Basically, they were able to win our game by just being patient and sort of like putting us in a position where they very much those first couple turns of the game were just like not really doing much of anything except for like playing one or two very impactful stacks pieces. Obviously the one that was the most impactful was the Stony Silence that they played on turn 2, which obviously slowed down our table a lot. You know, I was on Kenrith, there was a blue farm player and another Kenrith, right? So definitely a lot of people who would be affected by a Stony Silence for sure. And then eventually they started, you know, getting Sithis out and just accruing a ton of value while also using a lot of tempo plays like pathing my commander at the right time or playing a Drannith Magistrate at the right time to eventually be able to shut down the things that his opponents were trying to do and turn the corner and win the game with like several infinite combos. So it was pretty cool to see that deck kind of pop off. As I mentioned, I played against this pilot and I was very impressed by their play. So congrats on top 16ing with a pretty not respected deck in the format. Sithis able to take down this, well, not take down the whole thing, but able to make a top 16 cut when it's a deck that's not quite often respected. So congrats to our pilot. Sisay number 4. This tournament was full of Sisays. I cannot stress that enough. As many as are here in the top 16, boy, were there more. It was a very Sisay heavy tournament. So we have pretty normal looking Sisay list here. We got a Tishada's Tidebiter, which is a pretty atypical piece of interaction here in the Sisay list, but very good, especially in the mirror, shutting off other opponents' dock sides. We got a Skrelv that's a piece, you know, I know I was experimenting with, and some other players were experimenting with when it first came out, but a lot of people have moved off of it just because it's a little clunky and especially gets hit by artifact hate, feeds dock sides and stuff like that. Chain of Vapor is not often played in Sisay because it can often come back to bite you, so that's a pretty interesting inclusion here. And apart from that, okay, so we are on the ley line of the guild pack, which I know some Sisay pilots were very excited about when the set first came out, when Murder's Carl Manor came out. But unfortunately, a lot of people moved away from this card. That being said, as soon as that ley line hits the battlefield, any single one of your legendaries are adding 5 colors to Sisay, right? Including Sisay herself. So like, it is pretty cool in that respect that it is just genuinely making all of your stuff 5 colors immediately for Sisay and immediately buffing her up to that 7 power. So that part of the card is very good, but it also fixes all of your manas because lands you control every basic land type in addition to the other types. It seems on paper that it makes a lot of sense for the deck, but it's also one of those cards. It's like if it's not in your opening hand, it's just a dead draw in a lot of other situations, unless you like really need it desperately in the late game to like turn your Skrelv into a 5-color card, right? But it's an interesting include. I'm glad to see someone trying it actually in a tournament as opposed to, just like experimenting with it, not including it. I love the inclusion of Opposition Agent in the 99. I think it's like something pretty necessary to beat the Sisay mirror. And as much as I like Ashiok, it's pretty predictable, right? So I like the Oppo inclusion here for this deck. And yeah, congrats to our pilots for another top 16 with Sisay. We have Thrashing Death with Please Don't Tell Ikra. This is a Dargo Tymna list. The name is a reference to the fact that Thrashing is mostly a Dargo Ikra pilot, but now giving that old Dargo Tymna some try. We played against each other in the semifinals, and they tried to go off right before I did, and unfortunately we were stopped, which gave me the window to be able to turn the corner. This is a pretty cool Dargo Tymna list, very explosive. I believe our pilot is definitely a big Dargo fan, and so we're definitely seeing a lot of Dargo in this deck. A lot of really cool Dargo stuff here for sure. We have new inclusion Rakdos the Muscle, which is very good with Dargo. Be able to sacrifice it and then exile cards equal to its mana value from the top of target player's library. So basically you could sack Dargo and then immediately just rip 7 cards off of the top of your opponent's libraries. Not to mention if you have a sack outlet outside of Rakdos, you could keep paying red to redo that. So like Rakdos the Muscle is basically the Rakdos version of Greater Good for Dargo, which is actually a pretty big upgrade for the deck, right? So as long as you have another sack outlet, you can just keep ripping Dargo over and over again to just exile your opponent's libraries over and over. So that part's it's pretty cool. It's a really cool synergy there for Dargo. So yeah, this deck has a lot of the Mardu Tymna Turbo stuff going on here, right? We got our like so we have Molten Duplication in this deck with. Oh no, we do have dual caster here. I guess it's sorted alphabetically. That's why. Okay, I'm not used to lists being sorted this way. But yeah, a lot of the dorky creatures that come down and like give you some Tymna attackers while also being able to loop things like Dargo and Dockside over and over again with Ruthless Technomancer to be able to create infinite treasures that way. Obviously, this deck's able to do some pretty crazy stuff for sure. And yeah, there's a lot of really interesting inclusions here. This Final Showdown, definitely a card I was not expecting to see, but it's actually pretty good like anti-stacks hate. It's either instant speed board wipe to shut down your opponent's decks, or B, you can really just like shut off your opponent's mid combo turn. You can also shut off like things like Draneth and Dauthi on the turn you're trying to win the game, which is pretty good for a deck like this one that sometimes needs to just push pretty aggressively. You have your Sacrifice, you have your Burnt Offering to be able to convert your Dargo into things like Bolas' Citadel, Peer into the Abyss, all that stuff. You got your Altar of Dementia, Altar of the Wretched, just to be able to sack your Dargo, draw a ridiculous amount of cards with them, just like you would with Rakdos the Muscle. The deck's pretty cool. It's very much the turboist of Mardu Tymna list. Dargo just gives you so much acceleration and definitely allows you to attack at a pretty aggressive angle. So Mardu Tymna able to have a pretty deep run to the top 16 of this tournament. Congrats to our pilot. We have Noob 119 with Rocco's Creature Soup. I actually played against this deck in this tournament as well, and honestly super happy to see Rocco seeing play. It's a deck that struggled a little bit, especially when compared to Sisse, which like can do a lot of the Rocco stuff, but it's his speed. The Barocco here just putting up numbers, putting up results, right? Rocco definitely does have some upsides over Sisse, right? Being able to tutor any creature, not just legends, is actually pretty valid reason to play the deck. I loved seeing Vivian Champion of the Wilds of this deck, my opponent played the Vivian at one point in this deck, and like that was actually the thing preventing me from winning for a considerable amount of time, was like needing to play around their creatures at instant speed. So it was pretty cool to have that piece of tech in there. And I think like, once again, I've been stressing this a lot on the channel lately, but like flash effects are broken, and even more so in the past couple of weeks, I've just been seeing them overperform week after week after week. So flash effects, keep in your deck, they're super strong, keep them strong, right? Yeah, the rest of the deck is doing classic Rocco things. You have Symbiote to be your classic Rocco resetter. You've got a lot of dockside lines in here, Fajali Wayfinder, or Falashi Wayfinder being one of the best pieces for this deck, period. We got Village Bellringer lines here to combo not only with Kiki Jiki, but also work with your Sabretooth or your Emil, which is pretty solid there. We've got Perforos is just like a payoff for the deck, just infinite damage there. We've got Twin Shot Sniper much for the same way, but also being a counterable removal. And then we've got the pod lines, Vivian plus I assume Birthing Pod's gonna be in here as well. Yep, you're able to take those and then go up from 3, which luckily Rocco CMC is 3. You're able to go get Felidar Guardian, upgrade from there to go get your Karmic Guide, then go get your Kiki Jiki, and basically continue going up that line until you have your Kiki Felidar loop on the battlefield, ready to be taking your opponents out of this game. Roxanne in the 99, super solid value inclusion. I think it's really good for a deck like Rocco. It also, protects you against things like Bowmasters a little bit, in the sense that like Roxanne is making you artifacts that tap for mana, which then you can pump into your Rocco, as opposed to just only having dorks that pump into Rocco, for sure. I'm hearing a lot of good things about this Return the Favor card, especially for people playing decks that focus around dockside. This card is receiving a lot of praise. Do I think it's the best card in the format? No, not in any means, but do I think it has a lot of potential? I do. I think it's very flexible, and obviously there's a lot of really tricky stuff. I just got done talking about how strong instant speed things are. So being able to do some crazy stuff at instant speed, take your opponent's win cons, maybe present wins over their opponent's wins, it's pretty solid for Return the Favor, right? So this card I think we're gonna be seeing more and more of as time goes on. We have Spiders 1, 2, 3 here with Budget Atraxa, and I believe Spiders' name was referred to by one of the other decks earlier in the tournament, so maybe they were using this player's list, which is kind of cool. We have this Budget Atraxa list, which is just Thrasios Tymna. I think it's a very good name for this deck. And this is a deck I also played against the Swiss, and it was a really cool Tymna Thrasios deck. I played against them in a couple of these rounds during these tournaments, and they honestly made it feel like Tymna Thrasios was not a deck that was struggling lately. Like they were in the game a lot of the time. They had a lot of interaction. They kept a very responsible game plan, and were able to grind through a lot of the games, kind of threaten the Devoted Druid combos at any times. Obviously they have the Thoracle lines and stuff like that, right? But that was definitely one of the least impressive lines in the deck. Then there's the Emil Derevi Cradle stuff, which is also just like more and more outlets for the deck to be able to keep up. And I liked this deck specifically because it wasn't playing Tymna Thrasios like it was just the old outdated Tymna Thrasios. It was playing Tymna Thrasios in the way where if someone asks you, why are you playing Tymna Thrasios in the current metagame, it felt like this deck had several answers to that question, which I really, really appreciated about this deck. So congrats to our pilot for taking a deck that's been struggling lately and putting up a pretty good run with it. We are into our top 4 here. Number 1, we've got in 4th place, Blue Farm by Cavemen. There are definitely some interesting choices here with this Blue Farm variant. Some of the interesting stuff is Delny as a value creature slot. Tishana's Tidebinder is more of a controlling piece in Blue Farm, which is not often played as a traditional piece, but I was actually seeing like a decent amount of stifle effects during this tournament. I saw during the top 4, there was a Blue Farm deck with a Trick Bind in it, and we saw, it was not the top 4 of this event, but the top 4 of a different one. And now we're seeing a Tishana's Tidebinder here in the top 4 with this Blue Farm list. We also see Displacer Kitten stuff, which is definitely often not played in this archetype. I know, obviously I ran it way back in the Texas events playing that version of this deck, but yeah, here we see it rocking the Displacer lines, which I've been a pretty big fan of, but obviously are not very common in Blue Farm. Then we have a lot of the normal blue farm stuff, you know. Apart from that, blue farm does generically just sort of transition into a, hey, 4 of the best colors .soup .deck, you know, having this game plan of generating a much card advantage, and eventually turning the corner with some of the most efficient win cons of the format, i.e. Breach or Thassa's Oracle, and basically playing, you know, this version definitely a little bit more mid-rangey, which can grind a little bit better. We got things like Gilded Drake and stuff like that in this version, which are not always seen play in blue farm. So, rest of our pilot on the top 4. Here we have Jacob Wynn with Flip It or Rip It. This was Narset in this top 4 pod. They were actually second seed compared to myself going into this finals pod. And yeah, this is 6-mana Narset, and they really presented a threat in this game. Now, there was one point where our 4th place blue farm player jammed a Thoracle Win into my Mystic Remora, and I had to use my Force of Will to stop them, while Narset was about to come down the turn after. So Narset definitely would have struggled a little bit more had it eaten by Force of Will at that point, but I'm pretty sure they could have easily casted the turn after that too, which is kind of the crazy part. But this is 6-mana Narset. The big addition to this deck from the most recent sets was the addition of Lava Spur Boots, which is a haste enabler that you could get off an Urza Saga, which this player did during our match, and that was obviously very scary, right? You're always playing things like Need for Speed and stuff like that. You've got your Breach lines, one with the Multiverse, which is pretty cool to see that. I didn't think a lot of folks were on that, but after I had sort of repped it and when I ran Narset, it's become a little bit more popular, which is kind of cool. I'm glad to have my stamp on the Narset players. Things like Rage Rushing River, which is one that I don't traditionally love, but it's a pretty solid interaction piece during Dismissal as well. Yeah, no, our Narset player was playing very well and had a really solid run going into this tournament. And, you know, as you can see, for those who haven't been exposed to Narset, by the way, this is, there is a breakdown of the deck that I ran of Narset, but TLDR is like you attack with Narset, you flip over a bunch of time walks and take a bunch of extra turns and extra combats and stuff like that, and then try and get down a hasty Narset as soon as possible, win with either Jace or a Breach Light or whatever you might need to do to actually win the game. And yeah, this is pretty cool. It's a tough deck to play under the time limit, you know what I mean? Our player Jacob Wynn here very clearly loves the deck, had like a Narset sleeves, had Narset playbat, so like definitely very much committed to a commander, and you know, devotion to an atypical commander, as we've said many times as we go through cEDH, often can pay dividends. So here we are seeing Narset able to make the top 4 of this pretty big tournament. So congratulations to our pilot. All right, here we have my deck. We have the Cats, Kings, and so many things, the Dino Pilled variant. Basically, this is the list, the Emrakul version that I ran a little while ago. I took Emrakul out of the deck and added a few pieces here. I have Etali in this list now. I'm gonna be honest, as much as I love Etali, I literally never had it come up. Every time I could entomb it or tutor for it, I didn't think it would be as high impact as I was hoping for, and I would be playing around variants. So to be honest, I don't think it's gonna be long in the list. I never got the scenario where I could like get it and a kitten out. Yeah, it just genuinely like never came up for me. So as excited as I was to play Etali in this deck, it had zero ability to do so. So unfortunately, that one's probably not lasting long in the deck. I'll let you all know that now. I definitely made some adjustments, and so I actually did a whole episode of the Mind Sculptors recently with Callahan, where I talk about the changes I make from the Emrakul list and transitioning over into this version of the deck. And I feel pretty confident about that. As I mentioned, Thassa's Oracle was literally dead for me the entire tournament. I hated drawing it. It was the worst draw. I had already cut Consultation from the deck because I was very underwhelmed by it. And if you watch that episode of the Mind Sculptors, you'll hear Cal and I have a whole conversation about Thassa's Oracle and all that stuff. I'm going to replace Thoracle with Mnemonic Betrayal. I think I'm really happy with that choice. It might seem controversial to some people, but Kenrith wins in the command zone. I literally had 0 scenarios where I ever had to describe another line apart from I generate infinite mana and I force you guys to draw your deck. So for me, Thoracle's a dead card 90% of the time. And then like the question of, oh, well, what do you do if any of these other scenarios come up? It's like either A, if I'm doing a Breach line, I then assemble an infinite mana combo, or I do some stuff with like Mayhem Devil and Dockside, like, or you know, looping, well, I guess I don't have Bowmaster anymore. So it's mostly Mayhem Devil and Dockside and stuff like that. And it's like, I have answers, right? I have solutions for what to do if we don't have Thoracle, right? And Mnemonic Betrayal is technically one of those answers as well, right? So for me, we do not need Thoracle in this deck, and I'm very happy with, you know, Mnemonic Betraying my opponent's Thoracles instead. So that being said, those are the adjustments I would make post deck. I probably go back on Emrakul, if I'm being honest. I really, there were a couple times where Atalia was a question, and I was like, man, I would rather be thinking about Emrakul right now. So I'm probably gonna go back on that card, but I also could play like a Seaborn Muse or any number of generic value creatures here in this spot. You know, there's worth considering like testing a Deadeye Navigator too as like a way to continue looping Dockside and stuff like that. So there's definitely a lot of potential spots here with this deck, but I definitely want to, you know, keep messing around with it. I played 3 tournaments with the deck over the weekend. I found that I was still really happy with the deck. I really enjoyed playing it quite a lot. Obviously 2 top 4s and a top 10 is nothing to scoff at. The deck is strong for sure. The problems I'm noticing with it are when players are just greedy, right? When they're overreacting to stacks pieces and blowing them up and then like jamming the wins, or like specifically like removing Kenrith at times in which the only thing I can do with like 1 card in hand is pay 4 to draw a card, right? Like at times like those are the times that I think the deck is at its weakest, pardon me. And those are the times the deck really struggles. The other hand, the times the deck thrives are when you have Kenrith out, you have an abundance of mana, and you can just take your time, be patient, react to your opponents making mistakes, all of that stuff, right? So I do really enjoy playing this deck. It does feel like the modern version of everything I used to do with Dawnmaker Thrasios, and I do really love it. It just, you know, there's some adjustments I still need to make to the list. The deck is not perfect, and I love tuning it though, because Kenrith can be anything. You know what I mean? That's the cool part about this deck, is like, it can do any number of things. Like I don't need to be playing Teferi, I don't need to be playing Displacer Kitten, I don't need to be playing Talion or Talia or any of those things, right? Like probably need, you know, Neil Dockside and Grand Polisher and all that stuff, but like the deck is so flexible in what it can be, and that's what I really enjoy playing with it. It doesn't feel like the commander pigeonholes it in any way, and that's been a really cool experience being able to play this deck. So like Kenrith a lot, we'll probably continue playing it. It's definitely in my main roster for ever at this point. I'm really enjoying playing this deck, and very much that flexible infinite mana style game plan is one I enjoy quite a lot. So Kenrith's cool, gonna keep messing with it, but let's talk about our winning deck. And our winning player, we have Ganesh Shaha with youtube.com/@deckcheckmtg. Ganesh is a Tibna Krob player who has been playing Tibna Krob forever, and has put up some pretty decent results with it. They're a blue farm specialist. They basically only play this deck. I've played against them in a decent amount of tournaments at this point, and yeah, they were able to walk away with 10 duels after today's tournament. So obviously congratulations to them. Fairy Mastermind, interesting inclusion here in blue farm, but Ganesh not known for playing super spicy cards in blue farm, just kind of doing the blue farm thing. They were on the Necro lines, they're on the Adnaz lines, all of that stuff, and you know, just played some good high value blue farm stuff. Double Blast is kind of an interesting inclusion, which I think is actually just pretty much common nowadays as far as this deck is concerned. But yeah, super solid blue farm list here, and Ganesh able to take down the entire tournament. So congrats to our winner here. And that's our top 16 from GalaxyCon Oklahoma City, presented by Misty Mountain and Clash for Cash, all that. It was a really fun tournament series. I'm really enjoying going out to these GalaxyCon tournaments. They've been really, really awesome, and I'm hoping to do more. Supposedly more will be coming down the pipeline, and hopefully I can send those out to all of you guys. I might be hopefully doing some ads with them here on the channel for their next couple events, which is really awesome because I think these events are really awesome and the prize payouts are pretty good. So happy to have attended this tournament, happy to have walked away with the top 4, ending in 2nd place. So feels good and all that. Remember, all like and subscribe if you want to support videos like this for free, and hit up that Patreon if you want perks like getting videos early and stuff like that. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.